Hey guys, welcome to Challenge 5, plug in your own functions. So up until now, your assistant could talk, read documents, search the web, and remember things. But what if you actually wanted to do something, like check the weather, look up a database, or call an external service? Well, this is what tool calls are for. A tool call lets you define a custom function and hand it to your assistant. When your assistant decides that it needs to use a function to call a question, it pauses, tells you exactly what it wants to call and what inputs, and then waits for you to run the function and send the result back. It then continues the conversation using that result. So think of it like this. Your assistant is the brain, the tools are its hands, and you define what those hands can do. So how it works is this. You define a tool. You create its function, its name, what it does, and what input it needs. Then your assistant will recognize when to use it based on the user's messages and the context. And then it will pause and ask you to run it. It will return a requires action status with a function name and arguments. Then you run the function yourself and then send the result to your assistant. Your assistant will then pick up where it left off and respond based on the function's outputs. We prepared the code snippets for this challenge for you in the supporting documents for the challenge, but you can find them in our docs, in the tool calling page and tool calling SDK. All right, so there are two main ways to do tool calls. The first way is the non-streaming way. This is the most straightforward version. You send a message, you check if the assistant wants to call a tool, and then you run the function, and you send the result back. The responses come back all at once. In this example, we're defining a fake weather function. In a real project, you would probably replace the hard-coded weather data with an actual API call to a weather service. The important thing is to understand the pattern. You define a tool, you catch the requires action status from the assistant, you process the tool call, and then you submit the output back. So here's how you would do it. So for example, we're gonna first define a list of tools, right? We're gonna define the type, which is a function, and then for this function, we're gonna have the name get current weather, description, which explains to the assistant what does this function or tool do, and we also have some parameters. For example, location, and we also tell the assistant this is of type string and description. So what are we expecting from this? We then create an assistant. We create a thread and we add the message that prompts a tool call. For example, what's the weather in San Francisco? And then we get back the response from the assistant. And then what we do is we check if it requires an action. If it requires an action, if the status requires an action, then that means a tool call needs to be run, right? So we're going to catch it. And then we check, is it get current weather? If the tool call is get current weather, then we extract the location and then we will have some defined weather data, which is hard coded for now. And we're going to append the tool call back. So the tool call will have an ID, which allows the assistant to know like which response corresponds to which pull request, and also the output, which is the data. So then we're going to submit the tool calls back to the conversation by using a submit tool outputs, and then we're going to send it back. And then we're going to get the final response from the assistant. What's important is that we need to send the list of tools to the assistant when we create it, so the assistant knows what kind of tools it has access to. All right, so now for the second way to do tool calls, which is via streaming. So instead of waiting for the entire response at once, you receive it in real-time chunks as the assistant generates it. This is how you build the typing effect you see in tools like ChatGPT. The key difference here is how you catch a tool call. Instead of checking the response status, you listen to the root tool submit required chunk in the stream. When you see it, you process the tool call, submit the output, and then continue streaming the assistant's final response. If the first method felt comfortable, this is the same pattern but with a streaming wrapper around it. If the streaming feels confusing, stick to the non-streaming for now. Both produce the same end result. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Well, we define the clients, the tools, the assistants, and the thread in the exact same way as before. However, the only difference is when we add the message, we set stream to true. So Backboard will know that you want the outputs to be streamed. All right, so first, we're gonna need to collect all the content from the assistant. So when type is content streaming, then we know that it's just text or something else, right? But if it's tool summary required, then we know that we need to run a tool call, right? So first, we need to get the tool calls and prepare for the tool outputs. And then for us, in our case, we check if the function or the tool call is called get current weather. And if it is, then we also need to get the location, right? And since we hard coded our like weather conditions, we just collect the tool call ID, which allows the assistant, again, to know which pull response this is for. And we also append the hard-coded outputs. Next, well, we need to send it back to the assistant. So we use the submit tool outputs with the same thread ID, run ID, tool outputs, and we also set the stream to true. And then we collect all the chunks again and print it to display it to the user. Okay, so thank you guys. That is the end for challenge 5. Thank you.